welcome to this chapter. So after having studied thoroughly all the 4 grammatical cases in this course, now we are going to look at sentences which have several different grammatical cases within one sentence. Okay, now we are going to practice distinguish those different grammatical cases from each other. Okay, so we have 3 different tools in order to find out which grammatical case we're using. We have the case questions. We are going to look at them in this chapter. Okay, so each grammatical case has its own grammatical questions or case questions, we're saying in German. Fallfragen, it's called in German. Then we have the prepositions. So certain prepositions always work with the certain grammatical cases. Right? We have accusative prepositions, pure dative prepositions. We have the two-way prepositions that work with accusative and dative. So we practice that also to distinguish those two from each other. And then we have the genitive prepositions in German. Okay, so we have that second tool, and the third tool are the verbs. So we have certain verbs that we are always using with the accusative case, and some other verbs that we use with the dative case. Right? So we practice that in the previous chapters. Now we are going to apply all those 3 tools and practice distinguishes the different grammatical cases from each other. Okay, so as you know, let me go back real quick. So as you know, the dative case does not exist in English. So if you're an English native speaker, it is a little bit more difficult to distinguish accusative and dative from each other. But this is what this chapter is for, is to practice to distinguish those cases from each other, and like all the tools that we need, you learned in the previous chapters. Okay, so now let's have a look at this chapter and the different sentences that we have. Okay. Die Fallfragen, that means case questions. And here we have a sentence. Now we're going to break down the sentence here. Patrick kauft einer Studentin ein Eis. It means Patrick buys an ice cream, let's say, to or for a student. Now we have a female student. Now we don't have the preposition für here because it's not necessary. Because etwas jemandem kaufen, like for somebody, you can just put the object of the person to whom you are buying something in the dative, and then you don't have to use the preposition für. Okay, Patrick kauft einer Studentin ein Eis. So let's start with the first case questions for the nominative case. The case question for the nominative case is wer oder was, who or what. Right, now we're asking about the active part in the case question of the nominative case. Wer oder was kauft einer Studentin ein Eis? Right? Who or what is buying the female student an ice cream? The answer is Patrick. And Patrick here is the subject of the nominative object. He's the active part. The next case question is wen oder was kauft Patrick einer Studentin? Now in English it is also who or what, but it's about the passive part, the object that he's buying for the female student. Also wen oder was kauft er? Okay, what is he buying? The answer is ein Eis, the ice cream. So the ice cream is the object that he's buying. It's the accusative object here, because this is what he's buying. Whatever you buy needs to be put, the object that you buy always needs to be put in the accusative case. So the next sentence here, or the next question, the next case question is the dative case question, and it is wem oder was kauft Patrick ein Eis? It means whom or to whom. Okay, so to whom is he buying an ice cream? The answer is einer Studentin. So einer Studentin, it's the one who receives the ice cream. He's buying it to her or for her. Right? Whom is he buying an ice cream? Einer Studentin. So Studentin here is the dative object. And if you remember, the indefinite article for female nouns is einer in the dative case. Okay, so this is how you use the case questions in order to figure out which noun is in which grammatical case. So you have to look at them closely, and if you, for example, don't have a preposition which is a kind of a signal word, right? So if you see mit, you know exactly that, you know directly that whatever comes after mit, the preposition mit, which means with, whatever comes right afterwards needs to be put in the dative. Now in this case here, in this sentence, we don't have a preposition. Okay, we just have the verb kaufen. So whatever you buy, the object you buy needs to be put in the accusative, and to whom you buy something, the receiver is a dative object. So you have to break down the sentence and then use the case questions, for example, if you don't have a preposition. Okay. And okay, so that was about this sentence. Now let's have a look at the next example. So the sentence here is on the top: Frau Bergmann kauft ein Geschenk für ihren Mann neben dem Kiosk. Okay, now here it's a little bit longer sentence. Okay, so we have here just to look at that directly. So we have the subject. This is the one who buys something. We have a verb. We have an object. Ein Geschenk means a present. Für ihren Mann, for her husband. And neben dem Kiosk, next to the kiosk. Now this is indication of place. Okay, so subject, verb. We have an accusative object. We have another accusative object. Okay, because this is the object that she's buying. And this is here the preposition für. So for whoever she buys something needs to be put in the accusative after the preposition für. And then we have an indication of place. So it means Frau Bergmann kauft ein Geschenk für ihren Mann neben dem Kiosk. In English, that is, Miss Bergman buys a present for her husband next to the kiosk. Okay? Or convenience store, it could also mean. So here, the first case question is, wer oder was kauft ein Geschenk für ihren Mann neben dem Kiosk? So who or what buys a present for her husband next to the kiosk? Right? We're asking about the active part here. So it is who or what in English. We're asking about the active part. The answer to that is Frau Bergmann. So Frau Bergmann, she is the nominative object or the subject in the sentence. Okay, Frau Bergmann. The next question is, wen oder was kauft Frau Bergmann für ihren Mann neben dem Kiosk? Now, who or what is she buying for her husband next to the kiosk? It's about the passive part, and now the object that she is buying. Right? So whatever she buys needs to be put in the accusative, because that's the object that she buys. So the answer here is ein Geschenk, which is the accusative object. This is what she's buying. The next question is, für wen kauft Frau Bergmann ein Geschenk neben dem Kiosk? It means for whom, or for who is she buying? It would be actually for whom, I think, in English. But it's about the preposition here, right? Because für wen means for who, and this is a typical accusative preposition. So you know, for whomever she buys, the gift needs to be put in the dative. So here, for whom is she buying the present next to the kiosk? And the answer is für ihren Mann. Okay, it's the accusative object. As you see here, the preposition für goes always with the accusative case. And the next question here is, wo kauft Frau Bergmann ein Geschenk für ihren Mann? Right? It means where. Where is she buying a gift or a present for her husband? And here you have the preposition neben, which means next to. This belongs to the Wechselpräpositionen, they are called in German. So those prepositions which are about the location, they can stand in the dative or in the accusative object. It depends on whether the question is where is somebody going, where to somebody is going, or where somebody is going. Now this is for the A2 level already, but just for you to know, here neben, you use it, in this case you use it with the dative case, because now neben means next to, but there is no movement involved, so she's not going next to the kiosk, but she just bought it next to the kiosk. So the question is, where did she buy it next to the kiosk? I'm not asking where did she go to in order to buy it, right? So she said here, just says she bought it next to the kiosk. So that's why you have to use it in the dative case. So that's so the answer here is neben dem kiosk, it's the dative object. Also, you recognize it because the article is dem. The article dem just exists in the dative case. It's never in the accusative or in the nominative case. Neither it is in the genitive case, the one that we are going to learn in the A2 level. Okay, so as you see, we have a nominative object here, we have an accusative object, we have another accusative object because of the preposition für, and we have a dative object because of the preposition neben, but without asking where to, but just where. Okay, but also it is of course a help if you know the articles in the dative case, for example. In the accusative they are similar, except of the masculine one they are the same as in the nominative, so that would not be a big help unless the article is masculine. But here in the dative case, dem can just be in the dative case. There's no other possibility. Okay, so if you recognize the articles, that is also a great help. So let's have a look at the next slide. So in this sentence we have the following. Karl hat gestern einen Apfelsaft mit seinem Cousin getrunken. Alright, which means Karl has drunk an apple juice with his cousin yesterday. And let's have a look how we apply the case questions here. Wer hat gestern einen Apfelsaft mit seinem Cousin getrunken? Means who has drunk an apple juice with his cousin yesterday? Right? We're asking about the active part here. So the answer is Karl. Karl is the nominative object or the subject here in the sentence. Then the next case question, wen oder was hat Karl gestern mit seinem Cousin getrunken? Now this is the case question for the accusative, case. So the question is who or what, but we're asking about the passive part. In English it's again who or what, but in German now the question word changes. So who or what did he drink with his cousin? It's about the passive part. We're asking about the object that he drank with his cousin. So trinken, whatever you drink, needs to be put in the accusative object. Right? So einen Apfelsaft, the Apfelsaft is here the accusative object. You also recognize it by the word einen. Einen is the indefinite masculine article in the accusative case. So even if you don't apply the case questions, for example, just by seeing this indefinite article and knowing that it's the masculine definite article in the accusative case, this will also help you already. Okay, so Apfelsaft is an accusative object. The next one, mit wem hat Karl gestern einen Apfelsaft getrunken? And it means with whom. With whom did he drink the apple juice? So the preposition mit, or it's in English with, always goes with the dative. So with whomever he drank the apple juice needs to be put in the dative case. And or let's say whatever comes after mit, the preposition mit needs to be put in the dative. That's why it's mit seinem Cousin. Seinem, if you have studied the possessive pronouns, for example, you know seinem must be a dative possessive pronoun. It cannot be anything else. Okay, mit seinem Cousin, so the cousin here is the dative object because it's with his cousin. It comes cousin right after the preposition mit. Okay, so the next sentence, Alexandra glaubt der Nachbarin kein Wort, which means Alexandra doesn't believe or believes no word to her neighbor. Here, kein Wort, the negation, because we're negating the word completely. It's not even one word that she believes to the neighbor. So the case question for the nominative case here is, wer oder was glaubt der Nachbarin kein Wort? Right? Who or what doesn't or believes no word to the neighbor, doesn't believe a word to the neighbor. And it's the female neighbor, right? It's a Nachbarin, it's the female neighbor. But here, since we use the verb glaube, which is a dative verb, to whomever you believe needs to be put in the dative. That's why the article die has changed to der here. Okay, but let's have a look at the next question. So, wen oder was glaubt Alexandra der Nachbarin? So, who or what is she believing the neighbor? It's the passive part, like the fact that she, like the thing that she's believing or not believing. So here it's kein Wort, no word. She doesn't believe no word. Okay, so it's here the accusative object. Das Wort, it's neutral in German. And then the next case question. That's the dative case question. Wem glaubt Alexandra kein Wort? Means whom doesn't she believe a word? Or to whom does she not believe? Glauben is a dative verb. Okay, so whomever you believe needs to be put in the dative case. So here the dative object is der Nachbarin, right? So die Nachbarin, which is actually female, the female neighbor, it changes to der, right? Because it's in the dative case now. Okay. Then the next sentence is, ich sehe dich in einem Auto. I see you in a car. Ich sehe dich in einem Auto. So let's break the sentence down. Wer oder was sieht dich in einem Auto? So who or what, or let's say who is seeing you in a car? And we're asking about the active part here. So it is ich, and ich is the nominative object or the subject of the sentence. It's the active part. Then the accusative question is, wen oder was sehe ich in einem Auto? So who or what do I see in a car? Now it's about the passive part. Who's being seen? Who is the one who I see? So I see you, and this is dich in the German, and it's the accusative object here. Okay, so whoever you see is an accusative object, because sehen is an accusative verb. Then the next sentence, wo sehe ich dich? So where do I see you? And in einem Auto, this is the dative object here, the car, because in belongs to the Wechselpräpositionen. That are the prepositions that work with accusative and dative, just as we had the example with neben at the beginning of this chapter. So here the question is whether you want to go, whether you're asking where do I see you or where to do I see you. Where to would be with a movement, but here I'm just seeing you in a car. So in this case, you have to use it in the dative case. In the A2 level, you will learn it much more in depth with those Wechselpräpositionen, as we call them. Okay, so in einem Auto, this is the dative object. Also, you see the indefinite article einem. It must be dative because it has an M at the end. So let's have a look at the next example. Now in this sentence we are also going to practice the genitive case. Okay, so in the last sentences, or in the first sentences until now, we practiced the nominative, accusative and dative. I hope now it's a little bit more clear how to distinguish the accusative and dative. Now we are going to add the genitive case. Okay. So now let's start. The sentence here is, ich glaube dem Bruder meines Opas. Okay, so you see the S here at the end, and here also another S, so it is already visible that we are talking about the genitive here, that we are using the genitive. Okay, so here, ich glaube dem Bruder meines Opas, it means I believe my grandfather's brother. Okay, so we have in German we say the brother of my grandfather, let's say. This is how we put the genitive, or how we use the genitive in German. So here, the first case question is, wer oder was glaubt dem Bruder meines Opas, right? Who or what is believing my grandfather's brother? So this is about the active part, the subject here. Okay, so the answer to this question is ich. So ich, I am the nominative case, or let's call it also the subject. Okay, the answer is ich, so ich, this is the nominative object. The next question is, wem oder was glaube ich? Whom do I believe? We have to ask wem because we use the verb glauben. Glauben is a dative verb, to whomever we believe, right? It's the answer to that is always the dative object. So wem oder was glaube ich? The answer is dem Bruder, right? This is the brother. I'm believing the brother. So here, dem Bruder, it's the dative case, or the dative object. Because you can also see it directly, because we have the article dem. Dem just exists in the dative case. Okay. This is also a big help for you, of course, if you know the articles in each grammatical case. In the nominative accusative, they are very similar, because just the masculine one changes. Die und das stay the same. Now in the dative, if you see dem with the M at the end, also for the indefinite articles like einem, for example, then you also see or will know that it must be the dative, because it just exists in the dative case. We don't have this M at the end in the accusative, the nominative, and neither do we have it in the genitive case. Okay, okay. So the next case question is wessen Bruder glaube ich? So whose brother do I believe? Now this is the genitive question. Wessen means whose. Whose brother do I believe? And the answer is meines Opas. So it's my grandfather's, right? My grandfather's brother. So meines Opas here, this is the genitive object, meines Opas. So I hope you remember for all masculine and neutral nouns we have to either add an es or an s at the end. At the end of the noun. Okay, ich glaube dem Bruder meines Opas. Usually, I hope you remember that we learned if there are nouns that just have one syllable, we have to add an es, but it does not count for nouns that have an a at the end, because otherwise it would be opais, and that would be a little bit difficult to pronounce. So we just say opas. In this case, it ends with an a, one syllable, so we just add an s at the end. Okay, so here we have three grammatical cases: nominative, dative, and the genitive case in this sentence. Okay, let's move to the next sentence. So here, du kennst den Mann deiner Lehrerin. Du kennst den Mann deiner Lehrerin. It means you know your female teacher's husband, right? Because Lehrerin with the in at the end, it shows that it must be a woman, a female teacher. So here we have the verb kennen. Kennen should be for you by now a signal word, so you recognize that it is an accusative verb. So whoever we know is always the accusative object in the sentence. Okay, so here the first case question is the nominative case question. So it's wer kennt den Mann deiner Lehrerin, right? Who or what knows your female teacher's husband? Also wer kennt den Mann deiner Lehrerin? The answer is du. So du here is the nominative object. Okay, du the subject in the sentence. Then we have wen kennst du? Who do you know? Now we are asking about the passive part here in the sentence. Not to confuse with the passive in the grammar. It's not like who is being photographed or what is being eaten. It's not about this passive now, right? It's just about who is the doer in the sentence, and like here, who does this person know? So it's the passive part here. Okay, so the answer is den Mann, right? Who do you know? Oder wen kennst du? And then den Mann. Okay, so this is the accusative object here. Okay, du kennst den Mann deiner Lehrerin. Then the next case question is wessen Mann kennst du? So this is the genitive question here for the genitive case. Whose husband do you know? Wessen Mann kennst du? The answer is deiner Lehrerin, den Mann deiner Lehrerin. So it's your female teachers. So deiner Lehrerin here is the genitive object. Okay, deiner Lehrerin. For the female nouns in the genitive case, we do not add an s or es at the end, right? It does not count for female or plural nouns in the genitive, just for neutral and masculine. Okay, so here you have this example, this sentence here. Let's break down the next sentence. So here we have, versteht den Dialekt dieses Gastes nicht. It means he doesn't understand this guest's dialect. Okay, so the first question is, wer versteht den Dialekt nicht? Who doesn't understand the dialect? So that's the nominative object here. Who doesn't understand? Who is it about here? Versteht ihn nicht. Okay, so he is the nominative object or the subject. Then we have wen oder was versteht nicht? What does he not understand? Or who or what does he not understand? So here we use the verb verstehen. Verstehen is an accusative verb. Whomever we understand or don't understand, as it is in this case, is always the accusative object. Okay? So we do not understand the dialect, right? Wen oder was versteht nicht? Versteht den Dialekt nicht. He doesn't understand the dialect. So the dialect here is the accusative object in the sentence. And then we have the genitive question. Wessen Dialekt versteht nicht? Whose dialect does he not understand? Wessen. So we use asking about, let's say, the possession or who owns it, right? Who owns the dialect is the guest. So the answer here to this question is des Gastes. So des Gastes or the guest here is the genitive object. And Des Gastes or dieses Gastes would be with the demonstrative pronoun. This is with the definite article, des Gastes. Der Gast is the guest. It just has one syllable, der Gast, so we add an es at the end. Okay, des Gastes. Now in the genitive we have to add the es. Okay. So here, just to remember, wessen is means whose, and we are asking about the possession. Who owns the dialect? Whose dialect is it? Right, and the guest's dialect. So now let's move to the last sentence. And here we have, bezüglich dieser Information muss den Direktor in dieser Schule fragen. So in this sentence we have all 4 grammatical cases. Okay, this is not very uncommon. This can happen. It could be even, let's say, 2 accusative or 2 dative objects plus the genitive and the nominative, for example. In this sentence we have all 4 grammatical cases. Now this means, the sentence here means relating to this information, he must or he has to ask the director in this school. Okay? Bezüglich here means relating to. So let's start with the first case questions for the nominative case. Wer muss fragen, or wer oder was muss fragen? Who has to ask? Now right? He must ask. He is the active part. He is the one who needs to ask, so he is the active part, or also the nominative object, let's say, or the subject, as we also say it grammar-wise. Okay, then the next question is, bezüglich was muss fragen? Now I hope you remember that bezüglich is a genitive preposition. Whenever we use bezüglich, we know, okay, now I need to use the genitive case, and whatever comes right after this preposition needs to be put in the genitive case then. Okay, so here the case question is, bezüglich was muss fragen? Relating to what does he have to ask? Bezüglich was muss fragen? And then the answer is bezüglich dieser Info, oder this is just a short form for Information. Okay, so we often also say info in German. Bezüglich dieser Info, it's female, die Information, because it has the ending tion. This is the female ending in the German grammar. So die Information. So here we have to say dieser. Okay, dieser in the nominative case is actually the masculine demonstrative pronoun. But now, since we're using the genitive, it's the female form. Okay, so bezüglich dieser Info. So bezüglich, so here dieser Info or dieser Information in the sentence is the genitive object. Okay, because it also comes right after this preposition. The next case question is, wen muss fragen? So here we're asking, who does he have to ask? Jemanden fragen, the verb fragen or to ask is an accusative verb. Whomever we are asking needs to be put in the accusative case. So wen muss fragen? Who does he have to ask? It's the passive part here. It's who is being asked, let's say, or who he needs to ask. And the answer is den Direktor. Muss den Direktor fragen. He has to, or he must ask the director. So the director here is the accusative, or it's like director at the school. It's the accusative object here, den Direktor. Then the last case question here is, wo muss den Direktor fragen, right? Because we have the preposition in. Now you know, okay, that must be either accusative or dative, because the preposition in is a two-way preposition, or Wechselpräposition, as we say. As you see also here, in is eine Wechselpräposition. So wo muss den Direktor fragen? And the answer is, I hope you can see that. Let me zoom it in. The answer is in dieser Schule. In dieser Schule, that's the dative object here, or die Schule, dieser Schule, the school is the dative object. Now we have to use the in the dative case, because now he is not moving, he is not going to the school, right? The sentence here is, just zoom it out, muss den Direktor in dieser Schule fragen. We are not saying he has to go to the school, right? The director is in the school already. Okay, so the question is wo. Wo muss den Direktor fragen? Where does he have to ask him? In the school. That's why, since we are not going to the school, we are not asking wohin or where to, in this case. So here we have to use the dative. If there is no movement to the school, let's say, so we have to use the dative. case, and that's why Schule is die Schule. It's female in German. The school, Schule is female. So here in dieser Schule. Okay, that's why that's the female demonstrative pronoun in the dative case. In dieser Schule. Okay, so that was the chapter about the nominative, accusative, dative, and genitive. Of course, we could go on with dozens of more sentences and breaking them down. Now, I'll show you how to do this in this chapter. Please have a look, if it's still not quite clear, please have a look at this chapter again, and also to the on the previous chapters, just to make sure that you really understand how that works and how to distinguish those grammatical cases. Of course, you can take any sentence maybe from the newspapers, depending on your level of German. You can take a book, newspapers, whatever you see, websites, and try to break down sentences yourself, to practice until you really understand how to distinguish those grammatical cases from each other. Okay, that is a great exercise to do in order to really train that and really understand how to distinguish those grammatical cases from each other. Okay, so just to sum it up, you know the prepositions for the grammatical cases. Okay, the accusative, dative, and the genitive prepositions are also the two-way prepositions for the accusative and dative. You have to study those. Okay, you have the verbs. Please study the verbs, like verbs like verstehen, to understand. For example, you know immediately, okay, I have to use the accusative, for example. Okay, and then you also have the case questions, which will also help you to distinguish the different grammatical cases from each other. Okay, so I hope this course helped you to understand the grammatical cases much more, or to understand them in general. And of course, it takes some time to be able to be super great and in this grammatical subject here. But it takes some time, but of course you will be able to learn that. Just have some patience, and you have to practice that, and then you will really be able to distinguish those grammatical cases from each other. Okay? Also viel Spaß beim Üben, and thanks for participating in this course, and I hope or wish you lots of success with the German language learning. Okay. Tschüss.